Afro Tales podcast is a part of the Connected Podcast Network. Ahoy, my friends. Welcome aboard the Afro Tales podcast. I'm your storyteller, Amon Mazingo. Join me as we explore the tales that grew from the people of Indigenous and African descent in the Americas and the Caribbean. After, come and see me, chef, who will impart upon you a recipe for the story you have just heard. So with no further ado, let us set sail on this new age of exploration. The Patchwork Path, a quilt map to freedom. Hannah is a young girl on a southern plantation, a slave, and this is her story. My name is Hannah. I was a slave on a Georgia plantation. The year I turned 10, Mama taught me to make a special quilt. I learned how to stitch together pieces of old cloth to make different patterns. But Mama wanted me to learn more than just how to sew. While we stitched, she told me a secret. Hannah, each pattern holds a special meaning, Mama whispered. Hannah, this quilt will show you everything you need to know to run to freedom. She and Papa thought about freedom all the time. I dared to think about it too after Mama taught me about the quilt patterns. Soon after Master sold my sister Mary to a far-off plantation, Mama passed away. Papa said it was her heart that broke. Sometimes when I missed Mama and Mary so hard and my own heart was close to splitting, I remember Mama's words. A monkey wrench turns the wagon wheel toward Canada on a bare paws trail to the crossroads. Once they got to the crossroads, they dug a log cabin on the ground. Shufi told them to dress up in cotton and satin bow ties and go to the cathedral church, get married, and exchange double rings. Flying geese stay on the drunkard's path and follow the stars. That was the quilt. One day in spring, Papa told me to air out Mama's monkey wrench quilt. This pattern warns the others that you and I are leaving and that we are gathering our tools to go. It will be a long and difficult journey, but remember, Mama is up in heaven watching over us. Tomorrow night, storms will come and we'll run. So get your quilt, tie the corners together, and slip a little bread inside. I shook with excitement, but wished Mary were with us. I wondered what it was like where she lived now, and if at night she looked up at the sky toward Mama. Papa was a wagon driver. When he drove the mules to other plantations, he kept his eyes open, going and coming, for miles and miles around. He memorized roads, streams, and dark woods. Papa knew where runaway slaves could hide. The night before we left, Papa tried to calm me. I touched a finger on the wagon wheel square on my quilt. I knew it meant we were to pack things for the journey, as though we were loading a wagon. I also knew there would be no wagon, that we would have to run. We stepped out into the worst rainstorm I'd ever seen. Papa, do we have to leave now? I asked. Yes, the dogs won't be able to follow our scent. No work in the fields tomorrow, so Master won't miss us. In the drenching rain, He led me through dark woods. Did I hear hooves of galloping horses? We hid behind fallen logs. I shivered from the wet cold. I thought I heard a dog bark and a stick snap. My stomach tightened. Would they catch us and take us back? What would happen to us then? Early the next morning, I came to a church at the edge of town. With storms like this, the members here will be expecting runaway slaves, Papa said. We crept inside. We hid in a secret place beneath the floor. Daylight slanted through the holes cut into the wood planks. That cross shape is from Africa, Papa told me. It means life, death, and rebirth. I prayed that we would be reborn as free people in Canada. The soft voices of the practitioners drifted down to us as we waited for nightfall. Papa's lantern cast strange shadows on the walls of the tunnel that led from the church to the river. Papa told me that pirates had made the tunnels. We followed the riverbed upstream. The cold water soaked my shoes. My toes felt like icy hard pebbles. Sometimes Papa climbed the bluff to look for horsemen and dogs and whips. My knees and legs ached. How far was Canada anyway? Just as the sun rose, I saw a flock of geese high in the air. They're flying north, said Papa. We'll follow them. We walked night after night and hid during the day. When I felt I couldn't lift my legs, I thought about Mama and her quilt comb. She kept me going. I had never left the plantation or seen anything but fields and marsh. I could not believe my eyes when we climbed high into the mountains and saw the view. Surely we could see Canada from here. But Papa shook his head. No, Hannah, we are still far off. We need to find a way down this mountain. A little farther on, I found the way. Look, Papa, there it is. There's the bear tracks, like on my quilt. We followed the bear's paw trail to the valley below. I hoped we wouldn't catch up with the bears. The tracks led us to water and an empty, safe cave to sleep in. Mama's quilt patterns worked just fine. Sometimes we had something to eat, and sometimes we went hungry. We considered ourselves lucky when there were berries to pick. Bees stung me when I tried to get honey from a hive. If Papa caught a fish from a stream, we enjoyed a feast. Spring turned to summer, and now even the nights were warm. We kept walking in zigzag patterns like the drunkard's path on my quilt. I remember Mama told me once that bad luck follows a straight line. I knew the zigzag pattern would make it hard for Master's men to follow our trail too. Papa pointed to the shifty pattern on my quilt. He told me that if anyone came after us, we should scatter like flies. Later, we could meet back at the spot where we separated. That way, they can catch only one of us, or maybe none, he said. If I get caught, you just keep going, Hannah. One lucky day, we found a safe house. Papa knew to look for a lantern glowing in the window. The people who live there will help us, he said. How wonderful to get clean clothes and sleep on a real bed for the first time in months. hot bread and baked pork never tasted so fine. We washed ourselves and slept all day and night. The next morning, the good man and his wife told us they were Quakers. They believed that slavery was wrong and said they would help as much as they could. Next, they told us to lay down on our way to a place called Cleveland, to the crossroads. I listened close. 2 days later, the man carried us northward for miles as we lay hidden in the bottom of his wagon, covered by blankets and straw. When night fell, we struck out walking again. I felt rested and ready to get to freedom, but freedom was still far away. The nights grew longer and colder by the time we reached the great stretch of water at the crossroads. It looked like an ocean, but our Quaker friend told us it was Lake Erie. Freedom is on the other side, Papa said. But how will we get across? I asked. What if we had come all this way just to get stumped so close? Don't worry. Somebody will look for this sign, Papa said. He drew a log cabin pattern in the sand near the shore. We hid in a nearby graveyard and waited. A free black man saw our sign and looked around for us. We rushed out of hiding, and the man took us to a big cave that looked like a cathedral. He gave us clean clothes. I got a crisp new bonnet to wear. As Papa tied the strings into a big bow, I thought, the bow tie square on my quilt. We dressed up like we were going to church. With our new clothes, we looked like we were free. The man told us, you've always been free on the inside. Now your old life is over. Soon you'll be free on the outside, too. That night, Papa rang a small bell that the man had given me. We waited for a signal, a sign. We heard a faint chime as somebody rang back. Double rings. A riverboat captain took us on his boat, and we went out across the water. The North Star shone brightly in the sky. We had followed the stars to freedom. As dawn spread pink across the water, I saw Canada. It was autumn, and the trees, with their red and gold leaves, looked like they were on fire. What a beautiful place. We felt truly reborn. I hugged Papa tight. I spent our first winter making a new quilt, using pieces of the cloth from the old slave clothes and some new fabric too. A big one this time, with all the patterns of the quilt code, just like Mama had taught me. I left one square empty because I missed my sister. When Mary's with us again, I'll finish the quilt. Until then, I pray for her and dream about all of us being free. Wow, so that was an awesome story and right on time for June, which holds Juneteenth, a day of celebration by African Americans for their freedom of the ancestors that were enslaved here in the United States of America. I'm not going to lie, the end of this story choked me up when she reflected on her sister not being there with her. But I wanted to read this afterword that's in the book. The Patchwork Path is based on a story given to Jacqueline Tobin by African-American quilter Ozella McDaniel Williams at the historic Charleston, South Carolina marketplace in 1994. The story about how slaves used quilts to communicate on the Underground Railroad had been passed down orally from grandmother to mother to daughter. The story was held secret in Ozella's family until she insisted that Jacqueline write this down. In 1999, Jacqueline Tobin and Dr. Raymond Dobert published Hidden in Plain View, a secret story of quilts and the Underground Railroad. Since then, Ozella's story has inspired thousands to listen to the stories of their elders and pass them on. The church in this story really exists. The first African American Baptist church in Savannah, Georgia, is the oldest black church in North America, built by slaves who were allowed to build only after their day's work ended. The church served as a stop on the Underground Railroad. The cross-patterned Papa points out to Hannah, which is called the Congolese cosmogram, can still be seen on the floorboards of the auditorium. It is also true that pirates made the tunnels that Hannah and Papa walked through. When the slaves built the church, they secretly connected the church basement to a tunnel, knowing it would serve as a useful escape route. This book is a treatment to the ingenuity and creativity of the many slaves who risked everything to gain their freedom. Normally, I wouldn't put something like that at the end of an episode, but the fact that this is a story that's passed down through a family is remarkable. The fact that the church is real, that the Congolese cross is in there, that the caves exist, is just remarkable. That it shows what our people went through to just have the same rights and privileges as those who, quote unquote, owned us. It's amazing. The Patchwork Path, this particular book, it was written or retold by Betty Stroud. And I have to say, I thought I was going to do this for like a bonus episode, but after reading it, I was like, no, this one has to be on the main feed, right? It has to be out there. Just to give a personal thing here, one of the reasons I started doing this podcast is, one, I felt our folklore and tales and history weren't being told on podcasts. Our stories weren't being shared. When I say ours, I'm talking about those of indigenous heritage, those of African descent in the diasporas, in the Americas, the Caribbean. I felt that not enough of our stories would be told, and not enough of our freedom stories and our struggles were being told. I've been working on my ancestry since 2008, and only just recently I have found 2 slave masters in my family line. One on my father's side and one on my mother's side. And I found the one on my father's side a couple years ago, but I just recently, and I mean in the past couple months, found, as of the time of this episode, in the past couple months, found the slave master that owned my 3rd great grandmother and is her father. And it amazes me because it's not that far from where this family would have been, in Georgia. My family, the slave master I found, was in Montgomery, Alabama. And to know where your family comes from, no matter how or who the progenitor is amazing. To know that they fought and lived through that. To be able to go to the place where they lived, where they struggled, where they gained their freedom. As an African American man, as an African American in America, that's awesome. And it just drives me to learn more, to share more stories, and to keep doing this for as long as I possibly can. I thank you for listening to the stories that I read you. I thank you for giving this time. I thank you for sharing it with whomever you share it with. I created this podcast for children. And I hope if you're a parent, an auntie, an uncle, a grandparent, a cousin, that you share these stories with the children in your lives. Again, I thank you. Juneteenth is right around the corner. And I hope you celebrate it with as much zeal and enthusiasm as the first slaves that were free. So until we meet again on this journey, go see Chef. He has a recipe for you inspired by the story you just heard. And as always, have a blessed day. Welcome, my friends, to the galley. I am your chef, and today we have a wonderful recipe inspired by the story you have just heard. Today, we will be creating Black folks' Southern Peach Cobbler. Now, what do you need for this recipe? 4 cups peaches, ripe and fresh, peeled and sliced, or 2 28 ounces canned peaches drained, 1 cup of brown sugar, 1 teaspoon ground cinnamon, half teaspoon ground nutmeg, half teaspoon ginger minced, 1/4 cup of cold water, and 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. Now, for the batter, 2 cups of Bisquick. You may see the notes if you want to make it from scratch. 1 cup of milk, 3/4 cups of sugar granulated, 1 teaspoon vanilla extract, half a cup melted butter. Now, how do we put this together? Easy. Preheat the oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Place the butter in the baking dish and then place the dish in the oven to melt the butter while the oven is preheating. Remove the melted butter from the oven after a few minutes and set aside. Peel and slice the peaches into quarters, and then halve the quartered peach slices. If using canned peaches, use a colander to drain the peach juice before slicing them. Now, in a medium-sized bowl, mix the ingredients for the peach filling. This is peaches, brown sugar, cinnamon, nutmeg, and ginger. Add the cornstarch to the cold water and stir until smooth. Now, pour the cornstarch mixture into the peach mixture. Stir the peach mixture to combine the ingredients and then set aside. In a second medium-sized bowl, whisk the ingredients for the peach cobbler batter, Bisquick, milk, sugar, and vanilla. Pour the Bisquick mixture over the melted butter in the baking pan. Then, pour the peaches into the Bisquick mixture The dough will rise around the peaches as it bakes. Bake at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for about 50 to 60 minutes in a conventional oven. Watch the cobbler while baking and bake until cobbler dough is golden brown. To test if the cobbler is done, insert a toothpick into the center of the cobbler dough. If it comes out clean, then it is done. And that's it, my friend. Now, go. Do what you do. Make this recipe yours. Be sure to serve it warm with some vanilla ice cream on the side. And until I have another wonderful recipe, remember the Patchwork Path and what the family went through. And until next time, my friend, as always, enjoy. Thank you, my friends, for coming on this voyage. Thanks to Art by Chalet for the logo, episode, and shirt designs. You can get t-shirts and other items on tpublic.com. You can contact me on all socials at AfroTalesCast. That's AfroTalesCast. And email me at AfroTalesCast@gmail.com. You may also become a benefactor by simply sharing with any and everyone, giving a thumbs up, a 5-star rating and review in your podcast app of choice, or simply donating on Patreon or Ko-fi.com. That's ko-fi.com. So until we meet again, may your winds be fair and your seas follow.